what were the specific reasons which led to the war? We need to discuss those reasons. So basically, there are four reasons which are responsible for the war. We have the political causes, we have the social causes, we have the economic causes, and we have the military causes. यहाँ एक बात ये क्लियर कर दूं कि the term political means related to the government. The term social means that it is something related to the people. The term economic means it is related to money. And the term military is obviously related to the army. तो भाई ये जो great rebellion या revolt या Indian mutiny इसको जो हम कह रहे हैं भाई the great war of independence, why did it occur? So सबसे पहले डिस्कस कर लेते हैं the political causes. If we talk about the political causes responsible for the war, so there were some laws which were introduced by the government which the Indians did not like, and due to the Indians not liking those laws, they rebelled against the government and a war started. What are those laws? Basically, the first law was the subsidiary alliance. What was the subsidiary alliance? According to the terms of this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent forces. They were to be protected by the East India Company and had to pay for the forces. किसी रूलर को भी इजाजत नहीं है कि वो अपनी आर्मी रखे. दे हैव टू गेट द आर्मी फ्रॉम द ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी और उसकी पेमेंट भी करनी पड़ेगी. अब रूलर कह रहा है भाई वाई इफ आई एम हैविंग माय ओन आर्मी, व्हाट इज द नीड कि मैं क्यों जो है वो आपकी आर्मी रखूं और क्यों उसको जो है मैं इस तरह से करूं, व्हाई शुड आई डू दैट. लेकिन बस जबरदस्ती कि भाई नो रूलर इज अलाउड टू हैव हिज ओन आर्मी, और आपको आर्मी जो है वो तो लेनी पड़ेगी भाई ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी से, और आपको जो है वो उसके अकॉर्डिंगली देखना पड़ेगा. तो इस पर ये many of the rulers they became against the government and they started a war. Another law introduced by the government, that is the British doctrine of lapse. What is the doctrine of lapse? If a ruler dies leaving behind no natural male heir, if he is having no real son, we are not talking about an adopted son, if he is having no real son, 1852 में ये law introduced हुआ था, the doctrine of lapse. So all of his land will be taken away by the British. अब इसकी वजह से क्या हुआ? ड्यू टू द डॉक्ट्राइन ऑफ लैप्स, झांसी, सतारा, नागपुर, उदयपुर, संभालपुर, एतपुर, भगत, these were the areas which were captured by the British. Why? Because the ruler died leaving behind no natural male heir. कोई है ही नहीं. The yes, he is having daughters but he is having no son. तो जब no natural male hair available नहीं है, females available हैं, in that case all of his land will be captured by the British. तो British ने अच्छी खासी चीजें, majority of the areas were captured by the British just for the case कि the British claimed कि basically we are not capturing anything or we are just looking into things and ये तो हमने रूल निकाला था, अब जिसके पास भाई नेचुरल मेल हेयर नहीं तो हमारी गलती थोड़ी. So these were some of the laws which were introduced by the British और इनमें जो है वो जबरदस्ती ये सारी चीजें जो हैं वो इंट्रोड्यूस कर दी गई थी. तो द पीपल दे डिड नॉट लाइक इट. The Nawab of Oud, he died leaving behind a lot of natural male hairs. Still, all his land were taken away by the British, and they presented some fake excuses, some false excuses. That these are the reasons responsible for it. However, there were other things as well. But in reality, उन्होंने कहा जी ये जो है ना ये ही वॉज नॉट अ लॉयल रूलर, इस वजह से जो है हम इसके लैंड कैप्चर कर रहे हैं और ब्रिटिश अपने पास रखेंगे इसकी सारी जमीन. पीपल बिकेम एंग्री अगेंस्ट हिम कि भाई ये कैसा लॉ है, ये कैसी जबरदस्ती की चीजें जो है वो हम पर इंट्रोड्यूस की जा रही हैं. तो दैट टर्न्ड आउट टू बी अ प्रॉब्लम जिसकी वजह से वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस से स्टार्ट हुआ. टॉकिंग अबाउट द सोशल कॉजेज कि भाई व्हाट वर द सोशल कॉजेज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द वॉर, तो उसमें सबसे पहले तो भाई देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन बिटवीन द ब्रिटिश एंड द इंडियंस दैट वाज गोइंग ऑन. फॉर एग्जांपल, well educated Indians were not given high positions in the government. जॉब में अगर कोई एजुकेटेड इंडियन है तो उसको हाई पोस्ट नहीं मिलेगी. भाई क्यों नहीं मिलेगी हाई पोस्ट? हाई पोस्ट इसलिए नहीं मिलेगी कि भाई वो बेसिकली इंडियन है. ब्रिटिश होता तो मिल जाती. इंडियंस वर नॉट अलाउड टू ट्रेवल इन फर्स्ट क्लास कोचेस इन अ ट्रेन. ट्रेन सर्विस इंट्रोड्यूस की गई और इंडियंस को ही फर्स्ट क्लास कोचेस में ट्रेवल करने की इजाजत नहीं दी जा रही.
हेलो सर, मुझे आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही।
तो बेसिकली अब जब ये हो रहा है कि भाई फर्स्ट क्लास कोचेस में ट्रेवल नहीं करने दिया जाएगा और ये सारे इश्यूज होंगे, दैट लेड टू अ प्रॉब्लम, एंड द पीपल स्टार्टेड agitating and the people started becoming against the British government. इस वजह से भी वॉर स्टार्ट हुई। अच्छा, इसके अलावा ये है कि द ब्रिटिश दे डिक्लेयर्ड इंग्लिश एज द ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज। ये हुआ है 1834 में, व्हेन द ब्रिटिश सेड के द ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज in India is going to be English, and English replaced the language that was Persian was the common language which was going on. तो कहा गया कि भाई आज से ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज इंग्लिश होगी। अब लोगों के लिए एक और थ्रेट कि भाई उनके कल्चर को, उनके ट्रेडिशंस को, तमाम चीजों को, भाई ये एक और बहुत बड़ा थ्रेट है कि भाई इंग्लिश इज द लैंग्वेज दैट इज गोइंग टू बी द ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज। Western culture and Western system of education was now introduced in India on a large scale. Forced conversion was being done. अच्छा, इंग्लैंड से जो है वो खास तौर पर Christian monks were called, which were forcing the people to convert into Christianity. Christian monks are the religious leaders basically, or the religious popes, what we call it. So basically they were forcing the people to convert into Christianity. Moreover, the British started interfering in the culture and the tradition of the Hindus. For example, there was a culture of sati. Now, sati is a culture in Hinduism wherein if the husband dies, so the female is burned alive along with the dead body of her husband. ये कल्चर हिंदुइज्म में है कि अगर हस्बैंड की डेथ हो जाए तो हस्बैंड की डेड बॉडी के साथ जो है द वाइफ इज बर्न्ड अलाइव। सती का ट्रेडिशन है। This tradition was banned by the British. They said कि भाई there should be a complete ban on sati. However, बैन तो लगा दिया, लेकिन the Indians they became angry कि भाई ये तो हमारा ट्रेडिशन है, हमारा कल्चर है, we were the ones that were going to decide कि what is going to be done. How can you decide? The Indians they became angry. Indians were not allowed to amongst the Indian culture, the widows were not allowed to get remarried. Women were not allowed to get educated. Women were not allowed to own property. तो इन सारी चीजों पर से जो बैन है वो हटा दिया गया था। ब्रिटिश ने इंटरफेयर किया कल्चर में, ट्रेडिशन में। People started calling the British as the uninvited guest. And they said, how dare the British can interfere in our culture and our tradition and other stuff. So the people, they became angry and they started a war. So these are the social causes which are related to the people. Talking about the economic causes. So there were certain economic causes as well which were responsible for the war. Economic causes की बात की जाए तो high taxes were levied on the people, very high taxes. About 50% or more than 50% of the income was taxed by the British. The people, they became angry. Why the hell are we earning if we are going to be taxed so much higher? There were machine-made goods which were made by the British. They introduced industries in India. So due to the introduction of those industries, the goods were machine-made goods which were made by the British. Those machine-made goods were not were cheaper and the goods that were handmade were more expensive. So basically that turned out to be an issue. And now the Indian traders who were selling the handmade goods, their goods were not sold, and the British were able to sell their goods to the people because those were the machine-made goods. They were cheaper. So the Indian traders, they became angry against the British. You are destroying our trade. You are basically you are making us to face losses. You are responsible for the reason. You are the reason responsible for everything. What happened that the British, since they captured the lands, so majority of the people in India were farmers. अब ब्रिटिश ने लैंड कैप्चर कर ली, so they are not able to do farming, they are not able to perform the agricultural activities. That turned out to be another major issue. इंडस्ट्रीज खुल गई, तो इंडस्ट्रीज खुलने की वजह से जो इंडियन ट्रेडर्स से उनका सामान नहीं बिक रहा, तो इट रिजल्टेड इन पॉवर्टी एंड स्टारवेशन इन इंडिया. So these were the economic reasons responsible for the war. Talking about the military causes, the British in the military, all the higher positions in the army were given to the British soldiers only. Local soldiers, जो Indian soldiers थे, they were or they were placed at sepoy ranks. Sepoys basically soldier level को कहते हैं. So they were placed at sepoy ranks और उनको high positions जो है वो नहीं दी जा रही थी. Salaries of the Indian soldiers were very low. इसके अलावा एक और नया लॉ इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था विच वॉज द जनरल सर्विस एनलिस्टमेंट एक्ट. जनरल सर्विस एनलिस्टमेंट एक्ट ये कहती थी कि एवरी न्यू रिक्रूट इन द आर्मी, जो कोई आर्मी में नया नया रिक्रूट होगा, एनरोल होगा आर्मी के अंदर, उसको मुल्क से बाहर, आउट ऑफ द कंट्री, ही नीड्स टू फाइट फॉर द ब्रिटिश. मे बी ही विल बी सेंट टू जर्मनी to fight a war against Germany. Maybe he might be sent to Korea to fight a war against Korea or whatever it is. अच्छा, उस जमाने में majority of the Hindus were a part of the army. So the Hindus, they claimed कि भाई in our religion crossing of the sea is not allowed. यानी Arabian Sea cross करना, crossing of the sea का मतलब है leaving your territory, leaving your area. It was not allowed and it was considered as unreligious. अब हो ये रहा है कि हिंदूज कह रहे हैं कि भाई हम तो अपना मुल्क छोड़कर नहीं जाएंगे क्योंकि ये तो हमारे लिए रिलीजन के खिलाफ है. इंडियन सोल्जर्स कह रहे हैं कि वी विल नॉट लीव आवर कंट्री एंड वी विल नॉट गो. एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम द ब्रिटिश आर फोर्सिंग देम कि नहीं जी, आपने तो जाना है, आपको तो जाना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज दिस इज अ रिक्वायरमेंट. हमने तो लॉ इंट्रोड्यूस कर दिया है, सिंस यू आर इन द आर्मी यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू सर्व ओवरसीज. तो मैनी ऑफ द सोल्जर्स दे वर फोर्स्ड टू फाइट आउटसाइड इंडिया फॉर द ब्रिटिश. Although they had been recruited for the Indian army, but they were fighting outside India. The army men, they became against the British government and they started rebelling कि भाई हमें ना higher positions दी जा रही हैं, हमें ना better salaries दी जा रही हैं, हमें ना better treatment दिया जा रहा है. So why on earth should we be respecting the British? अच्छा जी, another major issue which led to the war was the greased cartridges. ग्रीस कार्ट्रिजेस का क्या इशू हुआ कि भाई द ब्रिटिश दे इंट्रोड्यूस अ न्यू राइफल एंड इस राइफल के बारे में ये कहा जाता था कि भाई इट वाज हैविंग अ स्पेशल काइंड ऑफ कार्ट्रिज व्हिच वाज टू बी बिटन बिफोर इट कुड बी लोडेड एंड फायर्ड. इस तरह की कार्ट्रिज थी और एंड इट वाज ग्रीस्ड कंप्लीटली. तो इसको बाइट करके खोला जाता था इस तरीके से, इसके गन पाउडर को इंसर्ट किया जाता था इनटू द गन एंड देन इट वाज फायर्ड. अच्छा जी, a rumor spread suddenly amongst the people that the grease that was spread over the bullet or over the cartridge was made up of pig fat or cow fat. कुछ लोगों का कहना था it is made up of pig fat, कुछ लोगों का कहना था it is made up of cow fat. Now this was a rumor basically which started amongst the people और ये rumor जो है वो continuously started to spread amongst the people. Both the Hindu soldiers and the Muslim soldiers, they refused to use the grease cartridges because cow is something holy for the Hindus, pig is something forbidden for the Muslims. तो मुसलमानों का कहना था तो पिग फैट का जो है ग्रीस बनी हुई, हम तो इसको बाइट नहीं करेंगे, कार्ट्रिज को हम यूज नहीं करेंगे. हिंदू सोल्जर्स का कहना था कि ये ग्रीस कार्ट्रिज जो है वो काउ फैट की बनी हुई है, काउ इज समथिंग होली फॉर अस, हम तो ये कार्ट्रिज यूज नहीं करेंगे. However, instead of clarifying the rumor, the British forced them to use these cartridges. So what happened that the soldiers, they became against them. The first ever soldier, the name was Mangal Pandey, who rebelled against the British and he basically killed 2 British officers and he ran away. The purpose was that those British officers were forcing him to use the cartridge and he was not ready to use. तो इस वजह से पूरी आर्मी अगेंस्ट हो गई ब्रिटिश के कि भाई why are you forcing us for this grease cartridge. So ये grease cartridge is also one of the major reason responsible for the war. However, this is not the only reason responsible. Obviously there are many other reasons responsible for these grease cartridges and other issues. तो basically ये war हुआ है in the year 1857, war between the Indians and the British, and because the British were having the modern weapons, because the British were having the trained soldiers, more army, Indians were poor, less army was there, Indians were not having the modern weapons. So it resulted in Indians getting defeated in the war. इस war के बाद in the year 1858, the Queen of England was declared as the Queen of India as well. The Indian administration was taken over by Queen Victoria, which in effect means the British Parliament. The Governor General's office was replaced by that of the Viceroy. अब ये कहा जा रहा था कि भाई इंडिया, the Queen of England will now be the Queen of India as well. All the affairs will now be controlled directly by the British Parliament of India. एंड देर विल बी अ वाइसरॉय इन इंडिया. इंडिया में एक बंदा भेजा जाएगा जिसका नाम वाइसरॉय होगा. उसका काम ये होगा कि वो इंडिया के सारे अफेयर्स को कंट्रोल करेगा और क्वीन को रिपोर्ट करेगा. एंड दैट वाइसरॉय इज आल्सो गोइंग टू बी अ ब्रिटिश. अच्छा जी, अब आ जाते हैं जरा इसके क्वेश्चन की तरफ कि भाई यूजुअली अ 14 मार्क क्वेश्चन कम्स फॉर दिस ग्रीस कार्ट्रिजेस. Sorry, usually a 14 mark question comes for the reasons responsible for the war. इस पर ज्यादातर क्वेश्चन जो है वो 14 मार्क्स का बनता है. फॉर एग्जांपल यहाँ पर जैसे क्वेश्चन है कि भाई were the greased cartridges the main reason which led to the war of independence 1857? give reasons for your answer. अच्छा, क्वेश्चन पैराफ्रेज हो सकता है, क्वेश्चन के वर्ड्स बदल सकते हैं, लेकिन द रिक्वायरमेंट इज गोइंग टू रिमेन द सेम. हो सकता है क्वेश्चन हो के were the economic causes the main reason responsible for the war, या were the social causes, या was the change of language the main reason which led to the war. So herein we need to explain all the reasons which are responsible for the war. So since it is a question for 14 marks, it is going to start over with an introduction. You can write down ke there have been several names given to the war such as Indian Mutiny, Indian Rebellion, Indian Revolt. The War of Independence is the great war which started over